Hello, this is Harbor and Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative perspective about the world around me. So feedback is greatly important. Feel free to reach out, and the sources to do so will be provided for you. All right, so some of the audio platforms that I'm on Spreaker, I'm on Spotify, I'm on Pandora, iHeartRadio, just to name a few. All right, so this episode I'm going to talk about the movie Summer Rental. I think it's a really good movie with the aspects of the family and summer and going to the beach and all of that, and especially in the time in which it was released. I'm going to go more into that about my thoughts and perspectives. All right, here we go. All right, Mr. John Candy. My gosh, that guy was such a powerhouse of talent. I mean, his comedic timing and almost everything that he did was very natural, and him and the gang from the Canadian version, really. Well, I would say that was like I would say SNL is the copy of the Canadian situational stand-up show that was going on, and I'll get into the facts about all of that later on toward the show. But him and Catherine O'Hare, Rick Moranis, I think I'm saying his name right, and countless others. But John Candy, they were very eloquent in the way that they presented comedy, and also within his point of view of talking about the concept of your life and your family and how to make that cohesive. Now, it's unfortunate that Summer Rental didn't get all that good reviews, but I see you take critic reviews with a grain of salt. It's one of those things. You hear buzz about something, you hear what everybody is saying, but you just take it amongst yourself to see what, if you choose to see what it's about, what's the movie like, and if you like it or you don't, that's really up to you, because you're the viewer and you should have those concepts of what's good and what's not, which is, a far cry with what most critics of movies don't understand. It's really up to the viewer to make that choice, but hey, whatever. So, Summer Rental, when I first saw that movie, I was about 15 or 16 years old. And I thought it was pretty different. And specifically, when you get into the range of all the type of comedy that was coming out. Now, I saw this, I'm past the phase of when it was originally released and everything. I saw it on TBS in the early to mid 2000s, but at the time, stuff that was coming out when I was teenaged and everything, it was trying. I think it was trying to, get back or keep up or stay in a lane of what was really popular in the aspects of comedy of the big 80s, especially with the aspects of family. And John Candy really was a presence in talking about these issues, because in this movie, particularly with Summer Rental, he really tried to encompass, the aspects of understanding that most of the time it's really, which is, if you're a man, that's you hold that honor and the nobility of being the ring bearer of support to everybody. But the way, everybody, his disposition with his family, and everybody is doing this, doing that, relying on him for this or for that, and then him and his concept of his disposition, his career, and everything. I think he was presented in a way where you have to be very understanding about the man's aspects of how he's doing his best to not struggle, but to make everything work, and to kind of go easy and understand that. And so, also with the aspects of raunch and comedy, the 80s was really, the stepping stone of exploration in so many ways of fashion, of going into that, because it's a running joke that say most of the coming attractions of 80s movies was the female attractions, if you know what I'm saying, from the front and the back. And so all of these concepts were really merged, I think, quite unique. Unique. It was quite interesting how that was presented in the aspects of this film. And also with Joey Lawrence, he's a kid at the time, and then his sister, she it was around the time where the Goonies was becoming more and more notable, or it was before or after. I had to get back to that for y'all to get that, to rephrase that later on in the show. But you get that, it was more and more understood that the concept of youth culture was really, tracing a lot of influence in the aspects of films during the 80s. And the way that, for instance, the teenage daughter was, her disposition and her aspects of femininity and being mature, and then the aspects of the mother, trying to hold that disposition of making sure her child doesn't move too fast, if you know what I mean. And then, also pinpointing on the real concepts of the best way I can say that is, so it's quite funny when certain women of a certain age, not all women are this way, but particularly when they keep themselves in shape, and they have the disposition that, other men's attention, but they just say, oh, it's just, I don't, it's unintentional. It's just, I want the attention from a other man, but I mean any ill will with that. You know that I love you. You know that I am committed to our relationship, to our marriage. But that's pretty, when you get into the aspects of that, that's pretty snubbing their thumb and not appreciating the importance of their husband by saying, "Oh, it's just on something. It's nothing really, anything serious." And it goes along the lines of when you see this disposition of how that's talked about in this movie, it's a real concept that happens a lot, and it's, unfortunate, but it's true. And I think that's why really a lot of people rallied behind John Candy, because John Candy was not afraid to just go into the depths about the aspects of how people are in reality. And that was true when he was doing, even when he was in SNL, when he was cast, he brought a certain charm into the characters that he was portraying on the show. It was just something about that you couldn't ignore, the humbleness of understanding the concepts of that normal everyday to day life, and the aspects of being relatable and presenting in a way to where everybody can say, "Oh yeah, I know what that's like. That's crap," or "That's really funny. I've experienced that before." I know somebody who knows somebody experienced that before. And John Candy was very good at that. And you got Rip Torn in there, and he's really good with his comedic timing and the aspects of. I think he was really good at towing the line with being strange but funny in how strange his characters can be. And that's even more apparent when he was in Dodgeball. But he just, the way they did, the ensemble cast was really good at pinpointing certain aspects of life in different ways. And then, with the aspects of travel, how case in point, miscommunication. You think that you have everything in line, and a friend is saying, "Hey, I can get you this deal if you do this," and I know a friend who knows a friend out here, and you're like, "Yeah, that's really nice. Okay, yeah, I'll take you up on that." And it turns out it's not exactly what it seems, and then you have to merge everything together to make the best out of a bad situation, because it wasn't the person wasn't forthright with what they were telling you about where you need to go or where you're going to be for your vacation. And so in that they wound up in a place that wasn't very desirable for their vacation, making it more uncomfortable in the aspects of relaxing, when the whole concept of the movie was for him to just decompress and unwind and not think about the day-to-day. Because when you think about that concept of being an air traffic controller, that's your profession, that's what you want to do. But they try to make humor with that can be a profession where it causes a lot of tension and stress on to the worker. And the whole reason for him to have this vacation is to forget about that, to kind of get a new point of view about it when he comes back to work. And it just seems like everything just, then when the S hits the fan, and it was really hitting the fan, but him finally, out of all those obstacles, they finally all came together as a family when they were understanding what the bigger concern about being on vacation is making memories. And however that may come is however that may come. But as long as you make those memories and try to make the best out of the situation, that's what makes it fun with vacations. Especially, in the summer, and you in the aspects of beach, especially with the aspects of beach life, especially, when you get into the areas of being in a touristy town, that takes away the concepts of beach life. That's supposed to be peace, relaxation, and that, also gives in the concepts of everybody's in search of that. And especially in the 80s, 80s was all about wanting the finer things in life. And I think those things merged itself quite well in this movie. All right, so with all this said, I am going to get into more depth on the facts of everything and the characters of this movie. Here we go. All right, so quite interesting. I found out that actually, I'm gonna pull it up. With the actress who played the older daughter, it was on the semantics of when the Goonies was released. It was released in the same year, so that's something that, if you think about it from this point of view, it could have been a means of a way to say transition both movies to highlight her talents. Okay, let's go into the facts of the matter about this movie. All right, here we go. Pull that right up for you. All right, so the date of the release of Summer Rental was actually on August 9th of 1985. So the director of the film was by Carl Reiner. Now, Carl Reiner, he directed pretty prolific films that centered around the aspects of families and all of that. And I think that he and himself had a really good perspective about the aspects. Well, I mean, that happens a lot, but it's quite interesting, like people like him and Ron Howard, when they had a heavy background as children, as young adults, being in Hollywood, and also in the aspects of most of their careers were centered around the aspects of families. So I can see how that was easily translated in a lot of the films and so forth that they produced. All right, so the story takes place in the fictional resort town of Citrus Cove, Florida, and was primarily filmed in St. Petersburg, Florida. So the plot followed Jack Chester, who takes his family on a summer vacation to Florida after being given 5 weeks of paid leave. However, they face a series of comedic mishaps and challenges during their stay. So, the genre. Summer Rental is a comedy film that captures the essence of summer vacations and the challenge of family life. Legacy. Despite mixed critical receptions, the film has gained a dedicated following and is considered a classic 80s comedy. So, the film includes a catchy and upbeat soundtrack with Jimmy Buffett. Jimmy Buffett, with his persona, is centered around the beach life, Bahama Mamas, so forth. So it's quite apropos that that they would ask, and he received with wanting to be a part of this film. So, Turning Around, which is played during the closing credits. So the production. The movie was based on a real-life summer holiday taken by Bernie Bilstein, who rented a house at a beach in South Carolina. The film received a rating of 6.3 out of 10, and of course this is relating to IMDb, with many praising John Candy's performance and the film's humor. So, Summer Rental was released on VHS, Betamax, Laserdisc, DVD, and then Blu-ray over the years. The cultural impact of this film. So the film has become a favorite among fans of beach-themed movies and is often cited as a nostalgic representation of what you would expect a summer vacation to be like in the 1980s. So, John Candy's portrayal of Jack Chester allowed him to showcase his comedic timing and the ability to make audience laugh. The film was developed at Paramount Pictures, and despite initial concerns about this film, it was greenlit by the studio's new president at the time. He was Ned Tennant. Alright, so I'm going to go into some more facts about John Candy here. Let's see, let me pull that up for you right quick. Okay. Right. All right. Okay. Okay, let me pull that up. Bear with me there, because I had everything, and then sometimes it just gets wiped away. Alright, so here we go. And this is in addition to the main character, John Candy, here and his legacy. Alright, so as I was saying, that sketch comedy show was actually SCTV's Second City comedy troupe of 1970, and he rose in international fame in the 80s with his roles in various films. So some of the most famous movies include Stripes, Splash, Brewster's Millions, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Spaceballs, The Great Outdoors, Uncle Buck, and Cool Runnings. Okay, so we're pretty all the basis of all these films. These films are centered around, which was John Candy's running pride at doing. He was really good at understanding that the complexities of being of a family, being a part of a family, but also on top of that, the complexities of the complications and messiness of life in itself. All right, so, and then I would say Spaceballs, and it is coming out, if I'm not mistaken, the Spaceballs 2, and good on them, and good on for every, trying to bring all the original cast together to give that authenticity of it. And John Candy, he really made his mark and proved his worth as a comedian in Spaceballs. And in the aspects of science fiction, when you get in that genre, it can easily get in with Mel Brooks and his comedy legend, the legend of comedy that Mel Brooks has contributed to American film. It wasn't hard for this. It wasn't just a hard push for this movie to be, highly funny, but also at the same time, it's not easy to make science fiction funny, because it can be drab and dry and overly dramatic at times. But it was quite interesting that they take that the cast had, and then all of that with contributing to the humor of what Spaceballs could be, because it could have easily been really corny, but it was a nice line of humor, and I really appreciate that. And it's quite natural when people like John Candy, and John Candy itself was cast. It's only apropos that it's going to be pretty funny, really funny, that is. All right, so after his death, Candy was honored with a spot on Canadian's Walk of Fame in 1998. In 2006, he became one of the first entertainers to be featured on a post stamp by Canadian Post. On October 31st of 2020, the mayor of Toronto declared John Candy Day to celebrate what would have been his 70th birthday. Wow. Alright, so this reaches the end of the Harbor and Light. I really like to know what you all think. Feel free to reach out to me in the means to do so. And I stress this, and I've said this before, the best way to reach out to me is email, but I also have other means to reach out to me, so you always have the choice of however you like to communicate. Alright, so tune in, turn up, and definitely take care. Bye-bye for now.